conversation. W.H. Auden, in his work In Memory of W.B. Yeats, wrote, "Poetry makes nothing happen." He was wrong, and here's why. Poetry makes you feel. Poetry makes you see. Poetry helps you to understand lives unlived, experiences unexperienced, fate, life, love, and so much more. And we have three superb poets from three very different genres, three very different voices from three very different nations to showcase just how very important poetry is. So without further ado, would you please put your hands together and welcome to the stage Afra Atiq, an Emirati award-winning poet. She's recently won the Special Achievement Award at the Arab Women's Awards and was the 2017 won the 2017 ADMF Creativity Award. She has a master's degree in diplomacy, has recently been awarded her PhD, and has been a featured performer and speaker on multiple platforms. She's performed at the Louvre, Abu Dhabi, at the Dubai Opera Stage. She has a passion for learning, for education, and for community service, and spends a significant part of her time taking her craft to schools and universities, giving back to her community through mentorships and workshops with untitled chapters. She's been published in the International Journal of Research in Humanities and Social Sciences as a scholar, and has conducted social research on literature and education, and you are about to be blown away by her. Salam alaikum, Afra Atiq, how are you?
Alhamdulillah, alaikum salam, Paul. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful to be here. I'm so grateful to be speaking to you again, because last time we spoke, I didn't have a PhD. So I feel like things have come full circle now. And I'm so grateful to the Literature Festival for putting this all together.
Well, I'm delighted to be able to say for the first time in public on the world stage through this fantastic event, it's lovely to see you again, Dr. Afra Atiq. How does it feel?
It hasn't quite sunken in yet, but I think it will. It's surreal. It's a really strange feeling. Like, I know I'm done, but I still kind of feel like, oh, did that happen?
Just quickly, because I want to get to your poem as soon as possible. Can you just give us just an insight into what poetry means to you as a listener to other people's poetry, as a reader of other people's poetry? What inspired you to put pen to paper?
I've always had a love of words, and my earliest memory is sitting on the floor in our living room in front of a giant, it was like this big, 1980 something edition of Webster's Dictionary, and falling in love with words and being fascinated with them. And I think poetry is this amazing medium. I think it doesn't get the credit it deserves, because a lot of people think it's boring. Hopefully myself and Carlos and Lemonade today will prove them wrong.
Oh, yes.
But it's been the thing that makes you feel, and the thing that makes you want to understand other people. And I think that now more than ever in this point in human history, we need to understand each other, and we need to be kind to one another. And I think poetry is just one of the many ways that we can do that, to foster that kind of understanding. And that's why these conversations are so important. And that's why poetry is so important. It is really the stuff of life, I would say.
I'd absolutely agree with you. I may find myself clicking during your poem. Is that permissible? And can you please explain why?
It is permissible. So with performance poetry, particularly with spoken word, if you hear something you like, you snap, because often clapping is very distracting to the person that's performing. But seeing as we're on Zoom and we're all behind our screens, you can clap, you can cheer, you can snap. It lets the performer know that they're doing a good job. It lets me know that you are enjoying the poetry, and it's just a really supportive thing to do.
Thank you very much for that. Feel free to click or to snap, whatever you want to call it, ladies.
Or scream.
It goes like this. Afra, would you like to tell us what, put into context, please, your first performance, which I believe is going to be your poem called Ambidextrous?
It is actually my poem called Numbers. I was going to do Ambidextrous, but I think that sometimes the poem chooses the poet, and it chooses the event in which it wants to reveal itself. So the poem I'm doing first is a poem called Numbers, and I think it's a poem about being told that I could never become a poet. And so it's one of those poems that I hope will resonate with the audience and will remind them of their greatness and their capacity to do amazing things and to defy all of the odds against them.
Ladies and gentlemen, please give a huge round of applause and snap your fingers to Dr. Afra Atiq performing Numbers.
Let's do that. I've never been good with numbers or names or remembering where I parked. I won't be able to match your face to your name, but I can tell you exactly what I was thinking about eating when we met. You were a cheeseburger and I was a salad, but who am I kidding? I don't like salads. They say there is no equation for the number of times you will try and fail. Failure is the product of effort and imagination divided by the number of setbacks. I am not good with numbers. You said I was your 7. I was your perfect prime number, not divisible, undeniable. You said 7. It was 7 times I would look for you before I realized you weren't coming back. 9 times I repeated the song you played me when you strummed your guitar. You played me. 4 years since the last time I looked in the mirror and saw who I thought I knew. 5 is the number of years I spent in college. 11 is the number of guys who graduated because of me, who would never know or see a college degree without help from me. It was the 2nd of August, 2013, 2 + 8 + 2 + 0 + 1 + 3 is 16. The year I learned that friendship sinks and not every hand held out is a hand worth holding. Last time I held a hand, she was in a hospital room getting ready to die. Death doesn't scare me. Maleficent from Sleeping Beauty still scares me. I can't get over it, believe me. I tried to play by the rules, but that's a lie. Lies go full circle, like pupils dilating, like dialing on an old-fashioned telephone. 05054. I still remember your phone number, but I never let it ring, so I settle for the dial tone. 12 is how old I was the first time I ever felt unbeautiful, because he said I was. 21 is 12 backwards, the year I realized that my thinking is backwards. Words cut stranger shapes from strangers' words. Letters A's, B's, C's, D's, D's. Ding dong, the witch is dead. Ruby shoes. Each number bears a significance that we cannot see until we experience that instance when we realize who we are and why we are them. I remember you said I could never be a poet because I could never even put 100 words together, and you're right. I can't give you 100 words. Instead, I'll give you 255. Here's 200 just because, and 55 for good measure. For every time you said my words wouldn't take me anywhere. Hand in hand, holding, folding, touting, telling truth, no use, lies is fine this time, lies will fly sky high, you and me, you and I not seeing eye to eye, we never walk together, drifting apart is my art, words are my brush, hush, don't say a word. A picture's worth 1,000 words unheard, absurd, I remember it rains as planes, the trains of our thoughts, that we bought a penny for your thoughts, a penny for the many times we replayed that September before the last December when we splint, stash, live outside the box, unlock, stop and stop. I remember you said I could never be a poet because I could never put 100 words together, but I've never been good with numbers. Thank you.
Bravo, brava.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Afra Atiq performing her superb work, Numbers. Can I ask you where does that come from? I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. I know it's a beautiful work, beautifully performed. Can you tell us where that originated from, please?
So it actually originated from a comment that I got from somebody who was very close to me at the time, saying, well, and they didn't say that I shouldn't become a poet, like it was an option. It was that I couldn't become a poet. And I feel like I've become the poet and the poem. And I feel like the best way to address these kinds of comments is to lead by example. And I just want to leave the audience with this thought that we're at a point where a lot of people are going to tell you a lot of things about what to do with the things that you love and the way that you live your life, and that you can't be this or you can't be that, or you shouldn't be this or you shouldn't be that. But the only person that can make those decisions is you. And I want everybody in the audience, I invite them to hold on to that and to remember their voices, because everybody has one. It is the most powerful tool that you have, and to remember your capacity for greatness.
Beautifully put. Bravo, Afra. Thank you so much, Dr. Afra Atiq. We will have you back in a little while. Thank you very much for coming to join us, and thank you very much for your performance. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a bit of excitement for you now, because we have a poll and we'd like you to interact with us from wherever you are in the world. We are going to bring up our first poll in which you can decide which answer you're going to give. We have 2 answers, and the question is, have you bought a work of poetry in the last 6 months? Have you bought an anthology of poetry in the last year? Forgive me. 2 answers, yes or no. Please tick one of the boxes or click on one of the boxes, the circles next to yes or the circle next to no. I'm going to give you 10 seconds to do that, starting now. You have 10 seconds to answer the question. Have you bought an anthology of poetry in the last year? It doesn't have to be print on page. It could be embroidered. It could be a single work. Have you bought some poetry? That's what we'd like to know. Hopefully more of you will say yes than no, but we'll see. 10 seconds is up and our poll results are in. And guess what? 47% of you have said yes, you have bought an anthology of poetry in the last year. 53% of you haven't, and yet you are here. You may be very interested in a poll question that we have coming up a little later. Stay tuned for our second poll, and then we'll have our third poll. But first, I'd like to bring into this fantastic webinar an extraordinary man. Carlos Andres Gomez is a Colombian and American poet, speaker, actor, an author of Fractures, a winner of the Felix Polak Prize in Poetry, Hijito, winner of the Broken River Prize, the Ford Indies Gold Medal, and a #1 SPD bestseller. He's also written a memoir, Man Up, Reimagining Modern Manhood, which was released by Penguin Random House. He's widely known for his viral poems, Where Are You Really From? And What Latino Looks Like, which have garnered millions of views online. He's the winner of the Atlanta Review International Poetry Prize and the Sandy Crimmins National Prize for Poetry. And he's partnered with John Legend on senior orientation. Carlos Andres Gomez, hola, ¿qué tal?
Muy bien, ¿y tú? ¿Cómo estás?
Muy bien, gracias. Carlos, it is a real pleasure to welcome you to Literary Conversations Across Borders. Can you tell us where you are tuned in from, please?
I'm tuning in from Atlanta, Georgia in the United States and feeling so honored to be sharing this virtual stage with my dear friend, Dr. Afra Atic and the great Lem Cisse. What a joy.
What a joy to have you here. It's a real honor to see you, Carlos. Can you tell us, are you well? Have you been surviving lockdown? And who is looking after your two darling children?
My wife is looking after the children now. We're taking it day by day. I've just finished a few months homeschooling with my two small kids, but I'm doing well, all things considered.
You're looking good. It's very good to see you. Can you tell us how you got started in your career, both as a writer, but more importantly for this event, as a poet? What poetry means to you, how it resonated emotionally with you?
When I was 17, the great Nuyorican poet Martin Espada came to my high school, and I watched him read for an hour from his book, Imagine the Angels of Bread, and the rest is history.
Do you remember what he read?
He read a bunch of works from his book, Imagine the Angels of Bread, and he closed with the titular poem, Imagine the Angels of Bread. And for those who don't know Martin Espada, I recommend looking him up. I mean, all of his work is incredible, but he was probably the defining influence in terms of my entrance into poetry.
Quite often in any writer's history, there is an influential teacher, as well as obviously visits to schools by people who write, or an influential parent. What made you put pen to paper? I can understand that would be an inspirational moment, but usually it takes encouragement by a third party, someone to say, oh, actually, that's good, Carlos. Keep going.
Sure.
That's really good.
I think I had some really incredible mentors, a bunch of different mentors, teachers, different people in my life. But I think for me, a lot of it came from growing up and not knowing how to process all the things that I was feeling, and growing up in a cultural environment where there wasn't a lot of encouragement, with me being people telling me you're a guy, you're not allowed to express your emotions. And then poetry became my way to build my emotional literacy and emotional knowledge, and ultimately my emotional resiliency. So I think poetry for me has always been a very therapeutic and kind of cathartic medium for me.
I happen to know you've worked with two great artists of expression of emotion, one of which, of course, is John Legend through his superb music. Another being Denzel Washington, one of the finest actors of his generation. People who are masters of their art, what can they teach you?
Absolutely. I mean, I think one thing about both John and Denzel is, you know, their work is an extension of their lives. I think watching their process, which is always the most exciting part for me about collaborating with masters of their craft, is I love to watch little nuances and little idiosyncrasies of them getting prepared to do the work, and watching how it's very much an extension of who they are. And I think for me, that's what my poetry and what my writing is and what my performance is. I want the poems to live in my body, and I want it to be an extension of the greater work that I'm doing within myself.
Well, you certainly nailed that. Would you please like to tell us what poem you're going to perform, and perhaps introduce it for us, please, Carlos?
Sure. I'm going to do a short poem and then one more poem, and then I'll turn it over to you to get to Lem Cisse. But this poem is, a lot of my work is excavating, I think, former selves, former versions of myself. And this poem is, I think, a love poem to my 15-year-old self. I think a lot of us may look back on earlier versions and cringe. And I think it's important for me to allow space for the joy and the pain and the horror and the beauty and all the different dimensions of that self, and try to think about what can that 15-year-old self teach me now as a father of two. And this is about going out dancing when I was 15. It's called Last Sundays at Bootleggers. My entire wardrobe was Canal Street original. Knockoff chic, adolescent sleek in my double XL blue and black bubble jacket. Yeah, I was inside the club, and what? Inside an oversized coat coated in sweat and Old Spice. A kid eyeing 16, but not quite there. I wanted it all, Chico. Learner's permits, the latest Jordans in baby blue, maybe a wink from the pretty Boricua in social studies. And when Biggie's verse dropped in Only You, he was in that room and teaching us how to stay elevated from that third floor wasteland towering above India Point. So we sang, sour-throated and nostalgic, for times we hadn't yet lived, in unison, like we wrote it, till our voices cracked and spilled over and between every rift. But in the throng of lost kids, where I finally found a self I loved, it all came together, like we could remix any wreckage and make it into a stage to slay. So we swayed and grinded like our lives were a music video tribute, hip to hip.
Bravo.
Thank you. And this poem that I want to read right now, you asked me where I am located. I am in Atlanta, Georgia. And in our conversation at Soundcheck yesterday, I was saying that Atlanta has been, in the last few weeks, literally and figuratively and literally on fire. And I'm very aware that I am living in the place that was at the center of the civil rights movement in the United States. We are in one of the biggest civil rights movements in human history right now. And I think being married to a Black woman, raising Black Latinx children, this poem is about kind of at the center of this new book that's coming out this fall, Fractures. At the center of it is the joy and the anguish and all the different myriad emotions of what it means to raise Black children in America right now, and thinking about the summer of 2014, which is kind of where this poem starts. And during that summer, it was right when my wife and I were about to start having a family, trying to get pregnant. And it was 2.5 weeks after Eric Garner, this father of 6 who was just selling loose cigarettes in Staten Island. And Daniel Pantaleo of the New York Police Department strangled him to death while he was selling loose cigarettes. And 1 week after we started trying to get pregnant, there was an 18-year-old young man in Ferguson, Missouri, and Darren Wilson, a police officer with the Ferguson, Missouri Police Department, killed him, an unarmed man. And this poem is sort of a reckoning with that. And also I want to dedicate it to all the Black Lives Matter activists in the United States and around the world. And this is called Race Was Not a Factor. And it goes like this. Race was not a factor, they said. He said, it looked like a demon. It charged me. Like I was 5, it, Hulk Hogan, 2 legacies. Ghost stenciled into concrete. One shadow sifted into ash. He sleeps at night. No regrets. His family is certain as the closed lid of a coffin they will be safe. It happened, he says. It was unfortunate. It is what it is, which is the invisible legacy. 18 years of a boy's stifled blush, choreography of a scowl with index and middle salute, sinew flung forward, barrel chest soft as unmixed concrete, whiskerless chin line, his crown was bursting forth and bowed, inverted king posing for a peon graced with steel, skull twice knighted by fire, the final blade of light, cut endless through the high frequency shrill that fluttered from his mouth, dull thud, from the brim of a brooch squeal, because child, because scared, because tired. The boy was done with being shadow, dust film on boot lip, wanted to be luminous. Sometimes a life splinters to break, to scatter, to be. I see my nephew, pressed to the edge of boyhood. Though he looks a man in my imagination with his flinch and blush muted, he is still carved raw from the giggle that overtakes his toddler body. Thomas the Tank Engine is this moment's alibi for letting go. As I watch him now, I see him still in that faded cobalt, whale imprinted bib he kept soaked through, but also I see the son I have now, knowing there is no plan. The nights accrue, like gravestones in a tiny plot of land, like lightless hallways that encircle the earth, an endless tether that yokes the crisp dusk from each day as it is drained of light. What can never be seen, cast against what can never be unseen. The promises made against that unspoken promise. Grief made invisible beneath the shadow of something too large to see. How all our children share the same erased name because of it. What leaves them riddled with everything they cannot see, piercing and rigid and always more weight than anyone predicts. The child still in the street. It is 2 minutes and a few seconds past noon on Canfield Drive in Ferguson, Missouri, and he is still right there in the middle of the street. Not my nephew, not my son.
Carlos, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Strong words, beautifully, beautifully performed and hugely resonating right now. Thank you so much for being so generous with your performance, with your energy, and with your time, Carlos. Thank you very much. Take a pause. We'll come back to you in a bit.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That's Carlos Andres Gomez, blowing us all away. Not for the first time, I might add. We've got a treat for you. Another powerful performer, a man who makes a difference, a man who has made a difference, a man who keeps on making a difference. An English broadcaster and author, the official poet of the 2012 London Olympics. He's been Chancellor of the University of Manchester since 2015 and joined the Foundling Museum's Board of Trustees 2 years later, having previously been appointed one of the museum's fellows. He was awarded the 2019 Penn Pinter Prize. He's written a number of books, a number of plays, an extraordinary number of very effective and affecting verse. He also happens to be a Booker Prize judge this year for the 2020 Booker Prize, perhaps the best known literary prize in the world. Would you please give a very warm welcome? I think he's got 5 honorary doctorates. So I'm going to say this. Would you please give a very warm welcome to Dr. Lem Cisse, MBE. Lem, how are you, my friend?
I'm good, my friend. Thank you for being a brilliant host. Couldn't want anybody better.
You're very kind, Lem. I'm still sort of got goosebumps and hairs rising on the back of my neck and a little bit of a tear in my eye from Carlos. Did he move you?
Yeah, I find it difficult to listen to who's coming on before me because I'm trying to prepare for what I'm going to do to my best. So,
yeah. I understand entirely. I've asked Carlos, and I've sort of asked Afra in 2 different ways. I'll ask a third different way with you. Can you remember your first interaction with poetry? You write about it beautifully in your most recent memoir.
Yeah, I think it was, well, I think it was it was a book about cats that I read when I was a child. But who knows when the first time you come across poetry really is? You know, you have your conscious story that I could tell you. Oh, I read a certain book at a certain time. Who knows when it was? Maybe it was my grandfather, my foster grandfather in Scotland, in Lochinver. Maybe it was a song that I heard in the early 70s on the radio. Maybe it was Bob Dylan. Maybe it was Bob Marley. Maybe it was, you know, maybe it was listening to the wind. Maybe it was, you know, staring out of the window of where I used to live as a child. I think it's not as linear as we like to think it is. You know, I think that you become a poet by trade, by profession, but also you become a poet. It doesn't matter about the trade or the profession, for reasons that are kind of beyond you, because of an unknowing. There isn't a clear answer for everything, and I think poets are often, and all people who deal with creativity are often looking into the unknowable somehow, trying to find their way through an age, a time, an issue, something that breaks their heart and makes their heart, you know. So I don't have as clear an answer as I would like to have for you, but I'm okay with that.
Do you know what? I'm okay with it too, Lem. That's as clear an answer as I would expect from anybody. It's beautiful. I'm going to have to ask you to do the most difficult thing in the world, which is to segue from having thought about the answer to the question to introducing your first poem, which I understand is one focused on love. Is that correct?
This one is called, it is kind of focused on love, actually, because I think all protest is based on a need for love and to be loved within the societies that we're in. All, you know, anger is an expression in search of love. Whenever I see anger, I see somebody saying there is no love and I need this and I have to fight for it. You know, it's really, you know, it's really, protest is personal. And I think poets often can bring the personal somehow into the political and can bring the individual into the protester. I'm not saying that I'm doing any of that. I just have a poem that I think is the right one for me to read. And I could be wrong.
I doubt it very much. Would you please treat us, Lem Cisse, to your poem? Ladies and gentlemen, Lem Cisse, from London, I assume, performing his poem.
Pass it on. How is it that we still smile when the pressure comes? How is it that we stand firm when they think that we should run? How is it that we retain our integrity? How is it through this ways that we keep clarity? How is it through pain we retain compassion? How is it that we spread but stay one nation? How is it that we work in the face of abuse? How is it that the pressure's on yet we seem loose? This is the story about the rising truth. When you feel closed in, simply raise the roof. Martin Luther had a dream. I have a dream too. The only way to get it is to pass it on through. From the day we leave to the day we arrive, we were born to survive, born to stay alive, by all means necessary. I'm an accessory to provide the positive vibe. It's a necessity to clasp our past, to go to war with our fears, to claim and attain in our future years. No message has been stronger, no sea carried more weight, no army marched for longer, no wind swept at this rate. So pride in my skin is in the vision I have seen. Pain I with stand for. I have a dream. Know who you are. Know the ground on which you stand, and never build your house on a bed of sand. Thank you.
Bravo, Lem. Do not adjust your broadband, ladies and gentlemen. That is Lem Cisse playing with the form and being strong in voice. Fantastic, Lem. Thank you so much. can I ask you, this is a hard thing to do. It's a hard thing to do. We're all used to the Zoom of Doom meetings. Performing live to a screen in your own room. How are you doing that? I know this is not your first performance.
Yeah, we're okay with our poems. My poems are my friends. So I'm hanging out with my friends. So whether I'm in my room or whether I'm on stage, I'm with my friends. So it's a pleasure, really, an honor. But yeah, I can't wait to get out in front of a live audience and walk onto that stage and be able to feel that energy coming back to me. But one thing that people don't often realize is that, for me anyway, is that when you read your poem, you're with your poem, you're not really with the audience.
Yeah.
The audience will decide whether they want to come along with me. Yeah. What is he doing? What is he doing? What is he saying? That's their choice. But I'm going to be doing this anyway. I think that's the greatest respect you can give to an audience, is to give your poem the best you can.
To inhabit the poem, exactly. Apropos, Lem, thank you so much. We will rejoin you in 20 minutes time or so towards the end of this. You're going to close the show for us. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Lem Cisse, MBE, with a stunning verse, beautifully performed, a bespoke performance for the screen, into a screen, coming out of a screen for you to watch it. We have our second poll now, which is going to be this. Given that Lem has just been talking about the act of live performance and about how difficult or interesting it is to perform live but to not an audience, the poll is going to be, how many of you have spent the time and money to go to a live poetry event in the last 12 months? How many of you have spent the time and money to go to a live poetry event in the last 12 months? Focus less on the time and the money. Have you been to a live poetry event in the last 12 months? It might have been a free gig. But it has to be live. Did you go somewhere to watch some poets or a poet perform? I'm going to give you 10 seconds to check either the yes box if you've been to a live poetry event in the last 12 months, and 10 seconds if you haven't. 9, 8, 7, 6, 4, 2, 1, 0. Thank you for taking part in our poll. I am delighted to be able to announce, due to Fahad, our wonderful web host's ministrations, that we already have the results in. And how many of you have spent the time and money to go to a live poetry event in the last 12 months? 58% of you have gone to see live poetry. Fantastic. Give yourselves a huge round of applause. In fact, stick your right arm up in the air, bend it at the elbow, and give yourself a fantastic clap on the back. Extremely well done. Thank you very much for doing that. We will have our final poll very shortly. Would you please welcome back into the room the poet you saw first of all, a recent recipient of her doctorate, which allows me to say, Dr. Afra Atiq, PhD, are you there? Can you see us in this glorious literary conversation across borders? Hello, Afra Atiq, there you are.
And I'm so happy to be in the company of such poetry. It's amazing.
I have to say, I'm extremely proud to be hosting this with you, with Lem, and with Carlos, and I realize how difficult it is to follow other performers when they strike such emotions in us, and then you have to create the emotion in your own head to perform your poem. Would you like to tell us what your second poem is, please, Afra?
So my second poem is a poem called Shara'. Shara' is the Arabic word for sail, like sail of a boat. And it's really, it's a song for the underdogs. And when I wrote the poem, I gathered all of my close friends who are writers, and I said, tell me what people tell you, and tell me what it's like to be a writer, and tell me what it's like to be an artist. And I feel like a lot of the times nobody claps for the underdog, and nobody cheers them on, and nobody sings for them. And I wanted this poem to encompass all of that. I wanted it to be a poem about entrepreneurship, about poetry, about going after your dreams, about finding your voice. I wanted it to be that poem for that specific purpose. And it's a very emotional poem for me to do, because I think as an artist, you are the ultimate entrepreneur. You are the ultimate kind of one person show. And I think even now, you know, so many people are turning towards a new direction, or they've, you know, they're trying to find another job, and there's been a lot of issues. And I really just want to remind everybody that it's good to dream, and it's good to go after your dreams. And it takes so much courage and so much bravery and so much pride and so much resilience to take that step. So I want to dedicate this to all of the dreamers, all of them. And I want them to remember that your dreams they're valid, no matter what they are.
Thank you, Afra. And would you like to perform for us, please?
Yes. The fastest way to kill a poetry performance is to be generic. The fastest way to kill a dream is to suffocate it. Squeeze out every last breath, wedge it between the words realistic and unattainable, wrap it in blankets of self-doubt and tell it has no place here. Ostracize and outcast until no one recognizes its face or speaks its name, kill off passion. Make sure that if the dream ever dares to show its face here again, the dream has no friends and nowhere to stay. So when they tell you, you can be anything you want to be. They mean something within reason, within the constructs of a society that dictates what is acceptable. Find a job that is acceptable. Silence your passion, watch your dreams like a silent movie on repeat. When I tell them I'm a poet, when I tell them I am a poet, they look at me like a failed business venture. Sorry, we can't meet with you. Call us back when you have a stronger proposal. Poets and entrepreneurs both know convention is just convenience we use to convince ourselves that our dreams are worthless and we are worth less than is customary, convicting us with no judge and a fact-lacking jury. Your Honor, I move to dismiss the notion of the continuous, quote, status quo. You can't quell my concern. Yes, you can direct quote me on that. Let's recap. They say they like my flow, but I know that it means that we object to this rejection. Let the record show we know it is never about the final destination. It is about how badly we want to get there. This is for people who want to get there. The underdogs, who know they can beat the odds when the deck is clearly stacked against them. These are people who know it can happen when muggles believe in magic. They look to new horizons like Frodo leaving the Shire, scared but determined. They are not misfits. They are perfectly placed apostrophes. The difference between Y-O-U''RE and your this is about survivors like us, skin grown thick like armor, riding through life like a battlefield. We are knuckles bruised from knocking on doors that said they'd never open because our ideas were never good enough. But the same people rejecting us, the same people rejecting us are the same people who use the flower crown filter and forget that Snapchat was a startup. Those who stuff the makers of change like monsters in boxes and bedtime stories, forced to roam around under cover of darkness. The ones who forgot how sleep feels because their dreams are more important than rest. No wonder they say 2 a.m. was made for the artists. We know this is not the quickest way to become famous. This is about looking at what is and figuring out how to change it. It is about life slapping you across the face and you screaming back, I got this. This is me. This is me being asked to spell the word unnecessary in the 6th grade spelling bee, replacing a C with an S, 2 S's with a C, tripping over my words, not seeing what I was saying, stuttering off the stage in shame and coming back a slam queen. This is for him, who knows his app can revolutionize the way we see business, saves his allowance because investors won't take a chance on someone armed with just a dream and a business plan under the age of 19. This is for her. The passion that can outshine the stars in a voice like an anthem. We've lost too many stars to this life's brutal clenched fist. This is not a motivational speech. This is a call to create communities of creators, engineers, of ideas. It is knowing that no amount of training and social conditioning can change what you believe in, so open your arms. Leave your hearts out like a welcome mat. Turn on the porch lights. It's been a starless night for far too long. Let the dreams know. Let the dreams know. It's time to come home. Thank you.
Afra. Bravo, Afra Atiq. If you like your poetry sassy, smart and searing, there's no better place to go. Afra, thank you so much indeed. Thank you very much indeed. Shukran, shukran, Shukran. I think we'll have you back for a lineup at the end of the show so you can take a bow to the on-screen audience. Thank you very much, Afra. Can I call back, please, the wonderful Carlos Andres Gomez, talking to us from Atlanta, Georgia, where things are calmer than they were a week ago. Are you there, Carlos? Can you hear me?
Oh, how are you?
I'm good. You're still standing. Are you propping up the wall, or is the wall propping you up?
I'm not sure at this point. I think the wall's propping me up. I think I very much resonate with what Lem said earlier, but I have been listening to Lem and Afra, and it's the gift and the curse of a beautiful event like this. I feel so overwhelmed with so much feeling, and it's just what an honor and a joy. This is really special.
To something to make you think, make you smile, and make you cry.
Absolutely.
As we said, poetry is a conversation across so many borders, often across language borders with works in translation. Here we're going across the Atlantic. It is an important part of the global conversation of humanity, and to my mind, one of the finest results of humanity, our species' endeavor to communicate with each other.
Absolutely.
Without further ado, Carlos, may I ask you please to introduce and perform your second poem?
Sure.
Thank you.
So I'm going to do two short poems, and then I'm going to close with one final poem.
As you wish.
This first poem here, this is inspired by a conversation I had with a novelist colleague of mine, and we were commiserating and lamenting the absurdity of spending years working on a particular book or a work of art, and then being at the mercy of critics, some of which are very thoughtful, some that it's clear they spend less time with your work than you might hope, and certainly a lot less than 5 years, and maybe just 5 minutes reading the synopsis and they dismiss it. And she was saying that the way that she sort of put it in perspective is when she got down on that process she was a YA author, she said she would look up 1-star reviews on Amazon of what she thought were the greatest books ever written. And of course, after that conversation, I got thinking. And so I went on Amazon and I looked up some 1-star reviews of what in my mind, is the 2 greatest books ever written, The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison and 100 Years of Solitude, Cien Años de Soledad by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. And as I went down that rabbit hole, I started to compare reviews between other infamous and famous books, and this inspired this poem. And the title is pretty self-explanatory, and it goes like this. Mein Kampf has better reviews than 100 Years of Solitude on Amazon. I found out today. At the exact moment a sound like drowning or heaving took me in my ears hostage, as a kerfuffle of futile scrapping tried desperately to keep a bird atop a ledge so as not to tumble from my 5th floor air conditioner. I could tell you nature is breathtaking, or carefully describe how the scent of my daughter's sweat-dampened scalp just after she's woken and taken that long drawl of a yawn is still cradled by the pillow on my lap where her nape was resting just 16 minutes ago. But what would that prove? Once, I watched a slight, nervous man in a starched, pressed uniform empty a flurry of baton hits on the limp skull of a homeless man for snatching a rich woman's purse. Watching, I felt freed of my innocence. All 7.5 years of my life seemed to evaporate into the thick summer air of Central Park. It was 1989, and I knew definitively, for the first time, how easily I could kill or be killed.
Wow. Thank you, Carlos.
I spent many years doing workshops on Rikers Island, which is the infamous jail in New York City, in the river between the Bronx and Queens, and right next to LaGuardia Airport. There's more conversation happening right now in the United States about abolition, about abolishing police, about abolishing prisons. And I think world making and imagining things that I think for so long, many of us have been talking about, but many others are for the first time considering. So I want to read this poem for the boys that I used to work with that are incarcerated on Rikers Island. A lot of people don't know this. There are 16 and 17-year-old boys that are in jail at Rikers Island. And those are the boys that I spent most of my time working with. And I want to dedicate it to those children that are victims of the prison system in the United States, a racist, a classist, criminal justice system that we have in our country. And this is called Mourning Rikers Island. And it goes like this. Mourning Rikers Island. Physics and light pierce the hollow stench of the forgotten gymnasium, stripped naked of clocks. All the adolescent boys stop, offer their grief to each other like water, glancing out the only window they all share. A single ray unfolds its warmth across the dusty belly of the thudded parquet. And here's the miracle. The sun frees everyone to sing.
Wow.
I want to say the most epic thank you to you, Paul. You are such an amazing, incredible moderator. I want to say thank you to Lem Sise and Nafra Atish. Obviously, Dr. Atish, I know the event's not over, but this is my last poem. I just want to say thanks. I want to say the most epic thank you to everybody from the Emirates Lit Fest and the Emirates Airlines Lit Fest and the Emirates Literature Foundation. I'm going to snap fingers for them. But a huge heartfelt thank you to Isabel Abujo. I want to thank Carmel Rosato. I want to thank Fahed, who's been doing all the behind the scenes stuff and often is in the thankless role. Thank you to everybody who's tuned in. This is really incredible. This is my final poem. I know it's a really overwhelming time for a lot of people, a really difficult and challenging time navigating the pandemic with everything that's happening socially and politically that people are thinking about. So I want to close with this poem that's about seeking out gratitude, even on the hardest days. And this is called Praise.
Thank you, Carlos.
Thank you. Praise. Because my grandmother's final days lasted 23 years. And so we'd rush each time. Say goodbye and goodbye. Te quiero mucho, abuelita. Te adoro. Because my mother's truest mother is grief, who taught her the slack-jawed abandon of joy. Because my daughter strung together a 4-syllable word this afternoon. Because I say I love you so much to my wife mid-fight. And we chuckle sometimes between barbs like we forgot which characters we were supposed to play because I was given a best friend for all of 6 years. And we handwrote letters each week in bright ink, dreamed of whose hair would give way first because the dust gave me a reprieve from the storm on the way home from daycare today. Because the rain is a stubborn guard when I am most tired. And grace refuses the chariots, also known as that rickety stroller that has somehow not yet quit because Brent's metamorphoses those ticking minutes everyone else loses sleep over, shows up an hour early or makes me wait while I reread the menu I've had memorized for a decade. Because we pretend we don't know what we'll order, ask each other, then get the chicken pad thai every single time because my sister and brother were once small enough to make a home of my curled arm. Because I loathe their arrival until that moment on the 7th floor of Mount Sinai because there are no half siblings. Because my body begins to fail a little more each morning in minute and quiet increments like gradual, gorgeous rust. Because I courted death too long, but now dream of my retirement porch. Because my son's scalp at 76 seconds old, the 3 weeks he barely slept for more than 15 minutes, the lunges that shaped my quads and calmed his sobbing just long enough because I have wanted to be a father as long as I have feared its weight, because I exhale knowing I cannot fail what I cannot leave, because no one I know has grown more in 3 decades than my father. Because right now, the oven is performing its miracles. Late spring is teasing us with its building warmth. My daughter is coloring in vibrant looping scrolls that look like cartoon fireworks, or the curls wreathing the large eyes she's borrowed from her mother. And finally, I'm home. Thank you so much.
Muchas gracias, mi hermano.
Un placer. Gracias.
Carlos Andres Gomez, thank you so much. Thank you for coming to join Literary Conversations Across Borders. You've blown me away, and I'm sure everybody watching. Thank you, my friend. Stick around. I think we're going to have a lineup so you can all take a bow at the end of this. Okay. Carlos, muchas gracias. Muchas gracias.
De nada, gracias.
Thank you very much indeed. Wow. You're still with us, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you're enjoying this as much as I am enjoying this. There is something about poetry. I've always thought there's something about author's words in an author's voice, and it all comes to a sharp point in poetry where you get to sense the mind that created the words, the heart that created the emotions delivered to you from the mouth, forming the words that the mind of the originator first envisaged them. It's an extraordinarily powerful medium, I feel, an extraordinarily powerful mode of communication of ideas and thoughts. And we're going to end on an extraordinarily powerful performer, as you saw in the first half just half an hour ago. Would you please welcome back to the Literary Conversations Across Borders stage, Lem Cisse, MBE. Lem, are you there? Can you hear me, Lem Cisse?
Yes, I am. Oh, excuse me.
That's a lovely picture of you. How old were you there?
Yeah, that picture's of me when I was 12, I think. Oh, no, 15.
So a couple of years ago then?
Just a couple of years ago, yeah. I'm just...
I knew you before I went grey. How come you've got no grey hair on your head?
Oh, no, I have. No, I have, man. I've got a whole lot of grey going on.
Lem,
I've been writing poetry since I was a kid. I knew I would be a poet when I was at school. And I told the teachers that's what I wanted to be. And within 3 years of leaving school, no, within 2 years of leaving school, my first pamphlet came out. Within 3 years, my first national book came out, and I was born to be it.
Answer me this then, Lem. You are a successful poet. I know you and I have had conversations on the nature of success, the nature of celebrity, the nature of fame. What does the recognition mean to you? You're MBE, you have 5 honorary doctorates, official poet at the Olympics. What does that mean to you? How much pride, if that's the right word? Some people have a relationship with pride that is odd, but what does that allow you to do? What does it allow you to say?
Well, Paul, I mean, you do what you do, and then when people are generous enough to be able to offer you an award, it is beholden on me to see the grace of that gift and to accept it in the grace that it is given. That's my modus operandi. That's how I work. But I would never think that it made me a better poet, or it made me a better person, or it elevated me in some way above anybody, because success to me on every level actually is being able to be kind to myself, kind to others. Yeah, and sometimes I'm not that, and I have to check myself, but that's where success is. Everything else is in everybody else's eyes. However, a gift is good. I've been a professional poet now for a trackable 33 years.
Yeah.
And so it's not an accident.
No.
That's the case. It's not like you're a fly-by-night or You know, I'm at a particular point in my life now where I can say this is what I do and this is what I'll always do.
I've got two questions. Two questions, if we can have relatively quick answers, because we're coming towards the end, I'm ashamed to say.
I'm sure we are. Go ahead.
There's a link across all three of you, which is that however good you all are, and you are all fantastic, you have not drawn the ladder up beneath you. As Carlos said in Teaching Kids in Rikers Island, as Afra performed in her second poem about the importance of pursuing a dream. What does it mean to you about not pulling the ladder up? What do you do a lot of work with inspiring other people. So here's the question, in fact, Lem, I'll make it easier and stop blathering. What would you say to any new poet, any person who feels that they have something they wish to express, who is watching this? What word of counsel can you give them to say, just do this? This worked for me, it might not work for you, but try this.
Well, I would try to learn, actually. I would try to share something. I would say this is a team game. You can build your career and you can think that you did it all on your own. You didn't. It's a team game, okay? You know, you are an artist, but the world that is created around you is full of brilliant teams, whether it's the people who work at the literature festival, whether it's other poets. Find the similarities and not the differences. It's very easy as a writer to, as a new writer especially, to forget that actually this whole creative industry is about other people, not about you.
You know, that's beautifully put. Beautifully put. Would you please do us the honor of closing out the show with your second work, please, Lemsi?
Yeah, I'm just going to read two poems. They'll be very short.
Take as long as you want. We're here for you.
This poem is called The Lost Key, and it's about when you lose your key. Like in the house, when you lose you know, and you're looking for it, or your glasses, or your something, or your watch, or your socks, or something. So it's a pretty simple title, The Lost Key, right? I know if you knew when you lost it, you wouldn't be looking. Have you checked the back of the sofa, underneath it? Could it be in your pockets? Have you checked your pockets? What about your pockets? What about in there? No, the insides of your pockets. Now, have you got any inside pockets? The insides of the inside. I mean, your inside pocket. Inside your inside pocket, have you checked the cupboards with the clothes in? The clothes, you know, the new clothes, because you never know, eh? You know, things turn up in the strangest. They do. They turn up. You have to check all of the pockets in all of the clothes of all of the places that you've ever been. That's a lot of pockets. Find out where the new land lies and the old lies land. It's funny, isn't it, how when you're looking, you know, you find everything else, you know, except don't start blaming people, okay? Don't start blaming people. Before you know it, you'll accuse everyone that was closest to you, everyone that mattered. You'll turn on them, investigate the time they might have slipped it in their pockets and slipped away, saying goodbye, goodbye. Have you checked your pockets? Your inside pockets.
Smart choice, Lem. Smart choice.
I'm just going to read Writer's Blockx to end up. It's called Writer's Blockx. It's about writer's block. Instead of rolling my tongue around a juicy adjective while finding myself a perfect perspective to metaphorically master to its utmost connective, I find myself lost in a cell full of words. I know what I want to do, but I can't find the verbs. Rhymes are on the run through the keyhole and under the door saying, I'm going to die a slow death if you use me anymore. But a padded cell is not enough. It's another cliche, another padded out and poached piece of poetry today. Pathetic, I would say, as the odd sock. And as the fact that I'm an oral poet and I think I've writer's block. That's actually not the right ending to it, but never mind.
You want to do it again?
Oh, I would love to.
Go on, do it again.
Oh, you are the absolute 100% best.
Get it right. Get it right. Do it quick.
Thank you. It's called, the thing is, I've got to find out which book it's in. It's called Writer's Blockets, and it's in this book here. And just give me 1 second.
We're with you, Lem. We're with you.
Oh, you're a blessing. Oh, there you are, baby.
Go for it.
Thank you. Pages and words and pages. Okay. Instead of rolling my tongue around a juicy adjective while finding myself a perfect perspective to metaphorically master to its utmost connective, I find myself lost in a cell full of words. I know what I want to do, but I can't find the verbs. Rhymes are on the run through the keyhole and under the door, saying I'm going to die a death if you use me anymore. But a padded cell is not enough. It's another cliche, another padded out and poached piece of poetry today. My illness is spreading, pathetic as the odd sock. And the fact that that gets me to the rhyme that I've got writer's block. Grief wells haunting my paper with cunning and clarity. To see this block, the big full stop, the end to my literacy. Suicide seems to be the only recurring choice. For on top of all this, I'm an oral poet and I think I'm losing my...
Bravo, Lem Cisse.
Thank you. Thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, here's the thing about live performance. It can go wrong. Sometimes it does. That's why we like live performance. It's not pre-produced. It's not pre-packaged. It's live, and like life, it can go wrong. Thank you, gracias, merci, grazia, aman setganalo, ya anyele. Shukran to everybody. Thank you so much for joining us here at this enormous, fantastic event, Literary Conversations Across Borders, which it has been a delight, an absolute pleasure to introduce you to Lem Cisse, Carlos Andres Gomez, and of course, Afra Atik. I would now very much like to hand you over to Isabel Abulhoul, who is the CEO of the Emirates Literature Foundation. Isabel Abulhoul, are you there? This is Literary Conversations Across Borders, reaching out to Isabel Abulhoul, CEO of the Emirates Literature Foundation, and Isabel needs to unmute herself.
I've done it. How easy was that? So, where's Carlos and Afra? Where are Carlos and Afra?
Standing by, do we have Carlos Andres Gomez and Afra Atik? Yes, we do.
There's Carlos, and where is the wonderful one and only Afra Atik?
I'm here.
Oh, great, great. So, first of all, I cried for all of you. I cried with all of you. And you are such delicate souls, all of you. I just wanted to give you a big virtual hug for sharing your innermost suffering and thoughts and sensitivities that you have. You are so sensitive to the world around you and the power of words. A huge thank you for wowing us and taking us with you. I mean, we've been on a journey. I wrote down dreams, Afra. Gratitude, Carlos, anger, because we don't have enough love in our lives, and the lost key. I've done that. I've blamed my nearest and dearest when I have lost the key and I put it right in front of me. I won't bore you with stories. And Paul, you are the consummate host. Thank you so much. And Carmel, who we can't see, and Fahad, who's kept us all talking, and thank you, thank you. So, this would not have been possible without the Office of Public and Cultural Diplomacy, who have supported this project. It was to be a traveling project and physically traveling, and we were able in a flash to turn it round to a real literary conversation across borders, because you're all over the place. It doesn't matter. We can connect through words and through spirit. So thank you for making it possible. Thank you to the thousands who welcome us in to their homes, so that we can talk right to you, wherever you are, whichever country you're in. We've had more than 59 countries, people from so many countries tuning in every week to be with us. And every week it's different, and every week it's absolutely beautiful. And please remember to come back on the 2nd of July, when we have Christina Lamb and Sultan Saud Al-Qasimi talking about reporting the stories in these changed times. So Christina Lamb is an award-winning journalist. Sultan Saouda Qasimi is a political commentator from the UAE. It will be another fascinating conversation, but I think all of us will go home tonight. We are home, but we'll go up the stairs maybe to be upstairs in our homes, and we will remember what you said and what you touched upon, and you have touched us all. So shukran, gracias, thank you.
Shukran.
Thank you, everybody. Shukran. Thank you very much, Isabel Abulhul. Good night, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. See you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.